As the years go by, it seems like a lot of publishers and developers have no problem charging top dollar for subpar products. What's even worse is those who go out of their way to defend these mediocre games. Two games that are guilty of this are Gotham Knights and the Saints Row reboot. While both games have garnered mixed to negative reception, there are still individuals who sing the praises of these games and expect critics to ease up on them. Before I go any further, I want to make something clear. If you enjoy these games but acknowledge their faults and don't try to fight tooth and nail for these games or any games I mentioned in this video, then what I will say does not apply to you. This is directed towards those who gladly spend money on these games, aware of the game's issues, but are on the front lines before and after release, making excuses for these games and the companies that make them. Now that we're clear on that, let me ask you this. Do you think it's okay for companies to release a product that is unfinished? If the thought of patches came to mind, then let me ask you this question. Would you accept an unfinished movie or an unfinished piece of clothing? If your answer is no, then apply that to video games. Games such as Gotham Knights and the Saints Row reboot both got delayed but were still released incomplete and were overall lacking in quality. You can brush off the technical issues and rave about how much fun these games are, but just because you can overlook these glaring issues doesn't mean everyone else has to. Glitches aside, these games would still be dog shit. The repetitive combat, subpar graphics and animations, characters and dialogue reminiscent of a soon-to-be cancelled CW show. And the world so devoid of life you would have thought you were in Silent Hill. There are instances where there are hidden gems out there, but in this case, these type of games are not gems. They are turds, and instead of staring at them, expecting something pleasant, you should flush them down the drain and let them be forgotten. Looking at reviews, walkthroughs, let's plays, compilations, and comparison videos will show you how inferior these new games are to games of the past. It's embarrassing that these companies expect us to pull out our wallets and drop money on unremarkable, middling, low-effort games. How many games have we been shown with flashy marketing and on-stage presentations for months straight, only for it to get delayed or it releases on time, broken with unfulfilled promises? All while the devs and fanboys come up with 100 excuses as to why it's perfectly acceptable to pay full price for games where the player is falling through the map or objectives that are unable to be completed, resulting in restarting the mission or restarting the game entirely. Now to the fanboys, these corporate henchmen that want us to believe that these games really have quality and care put into them. They will tell you how much fun they are and the charm there in these games, as if there's something deep about these middle-of-the-road games. I bet the bootlickers still think games such as Anthem or Fallout 76 are special. Maybe to them, we just don't understand what makes games like that so great. Like Death Stranding. Anyone who didn't like playing the Amazon Delivery Man game was too dumb to understand its brilliance, which is why they have so much trouble explaining what the game is about, or they need to make 5-hour reviews. Don't be fooled in thinking that in a few years there won't be any video essays by some 20-something-year-old out of college reading off of Wikipedia and Jason Schreier articles, rambling on for an hour about how these colossal failures of games are somehow misunderstood. Maybe some dolts can make an hour-long video on how consumers got fucked in the ass by these million-dollar companies that deliberately put out a flaming pile of shite, all while ensuring the public that said product would release when ready. That brings me to the White Knights online that try to pin us as hate mongers because to them, we are the bad guys for pointing out these appalling products from complacent companies that usually consist of dyed hair, goofy looking nut jobs. If you want to know who's dragging gaming down, it's not just the publishers and developers or even the investors, but it's those who love to consume and consume. They're the ones who allow more Gotham Knights and Saints Row reboots because they expect the rest of us to shut our brains off and just play the games. These are the same crowd that feeds into other forms of media, just a bunch of pigs eating any slop put in front of them. Keep saying how low FPS doesn't bother you on next-gen hardware, or how glitches are to be expected. Remind us again about the magical day one patch. Going about how fun the game is, and that's all that matters. Flap your gums about the haters and those feeding negativity. Go on, White Knight, fight the good fight for Daddy Developer. To the clowns like them, we need to have the utmost respect for the developers. They do so much for us. How dare we say anything negative about these products after we forked over $60 or more? We need to learn to just shut up and consume. That's how the sheep act, and that's why gaming has gone backwards instead of forward. While some games are released that really push the bar, we unfortunately have more games that manage to lack features or creativity somehow, unlike games from 15 years ago. You wonder why so many people go back to games from the past? It's not solely for nostalgia, but rather for how truly great those games are, many of which didn't need anyone to tell us how misunderstood they were, because the game showed us how great it was without patches or excuses. No incompetent developers or community managers calling fans terrorists. No, you had games by developers that actually gave a fuck about what they put out. Many of the apologist defenders will waste time fighting on a hill for Gotham Knights, Saints Row Reboot, and so many other bargain bin fodder, when they could have been using up all that energy for games like Sleeping Dogs, The Getaway, Max Payne 3, Rogue Galaxy, Eternal Sonata, Haunting Ground, The Suffering, God Hand, Wet, Manhunt 2, Ninja Blade, Lost Odyssey, Shadows of the Damned, and Spec Ops: The Line, just to name a few that would probably still be around today. Well, maybe not Manhunt, since we live in clown world full of sensitive pussies constantly looking for something to be offended by. But I'm sure there's plenty of other games that could have benefited from word of mouth or people buying the games on release, back when video games tried to innovate or stand out from the rest of the herd, and actually worked on release, not relying on patch updates, whereas games such as Gotham Knights and Saints Row are relying on you to sit and wait for the next set of patches to roll out to fix their lousy excuse of a quality product. All these jack-offs going hard for these games that are simply a pile of corporate hogwash. Creatively bankrupt developers pushing out excrement, selling you lie after lie. As the price increases, the standard lowers. If the game isn't a broken mess, then it's a lazy cash grab in hopes of being the next flavor of the month. You can choose to settle for games such as Gotham Knights, Saints Row Reboot, Mass Effect Andromeda, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Anthem, Fallout 76, Life is Strange, or Cyberpunk 2077. It doesn't matter which one you want to go bad for. Those kind of games drag the industry down and get ripped on by critics for a reason. They're not misunderstood. They're simply games that expect you to shut off your brain and lower your standards. Unfortunately, we have so many people that are willing to lower their standards and gleefully accept anything companies put out, while the rest of us wait for the standard to be raised high like it was once upon a time. And until more people wake up and see how little these companies think of you, then maybe we can look at the future instead of looking at the past. Because other than graphics, these old games put most of the current games to shame. You know, a lot of people like to bring up toxic negativity, but something can be said about toxic positivity, because it's real and it's running rampant. How do you think games like Gotham Knights and Saints Row Reboot get made? Because these developers know that the toxic positivity crowd will be there. They can rely on them to shut their brains off and consume product. While those out there who simply point out these egregious games get attacked from all sides, Best thing to do is keep your brains on, don't fold under pressure, and don't sell out. If we just shut up about these issues, then these companies will get away with more bullshit. Sometimes you have to be that one guy in the crowd that says, "No sir, I don't like it."